Hey everybody, it's Shelly and we're here with another ShellyTalk, episode 4. Sounds very professional, doesn't it? I have episodes. I wanted to check in and maybe give you a chuckle or a smile and talk about my father's addiction to chocolate chips. He really had a thing for dark chocolate, and he loved chocolate chips straight out of the bag. He would call them nibbles. And my mother would always bake cookies. She never bought them. Most mothers, I think, or at least to my recollection anyway, did bake rather than go out and buy stuff. It was more expensive and it didn't taste as good. So anyway, Mom had a gazillion cookie recipes, and so she always baked. We came from the Midwest, our family did, and from Indiana, where you made cookies with whatever you had. Sometimes it would be oatmeal, if you had some raisins, if you had some applesauce, whatever, you made cookies out of those. Well, Mom would make the Toll House cookies that the recipe was on the side of the chocolate chip bag. Oh, so good. Well, the problem is that she couldn't keep them in the house, the chips, I mean, because my father would find them, and next thing you know, he'd snack on them after she goes to bed at 9:30. Well, by morning, the bag, empty bag, was in the trash, which really did not make her happy. Well, she knew that his least favorite cookie of hers was applesauce raisin. So he would come home, he'd be looking forward to getting himself a little snack, go digging around in the cookie jar, and come back with a handful of disappointment. And she came around the corner once and she said, "You don't like those?" He said, "Oh no, they're great." He said, "You never made anything that I didn't like." She said, "Liar." She said, "I was going to make chocolate chip cookies, but for some reason the chips were missing." And she said, "This is all I had to make cookies with." And then around the corner she goes. All right, message was clearly received. He didn't care. She would buy the chips. She would hide them. She'd put behind pans, or one time she even put them in the freezer. She put them in the pantry behind boxes of things that hadn't moved in a year. He always found them. He didn't always eat them, but if he was hungry, even though he was a skinny man and he didn't put on weight, if he was hungry, he'd find whatever it was he was looking for. And if not, he'd find a way to make sure that it got in the house with the next grocery order. So anyway, but it was more fun to steal them, of course. She did this off and on for years, where she would hide them, he'd find them. Sometimes he'd just leave them alone, but I don't think that we had Toll House cookies as often as I would have liked, because he wouldn't keep his mitts out of the stuff. All right, so one time she was supposed to make a double batch because she was going to take a batch to church for something that was going on. And she goes in and she had bought a big gigundo bag of whatever it was, whatever size they had, of chocolate chip cookies. And she always bought the Nestle. You know, she wanted to make sure that she got the good ones if there was a store brand. She rarely ever bought anything other than the national brand. I think at the time people were concerned about quality, and so they would buy the national brands if they could do it. All right, so she went to make the cookies. He had gotten into the big gigundo bag, and he polished off probably better than a third of them. And he went and he clipped them back up and stuck them in the cupboard. He didn't realize that she was going to make a double batch, and she needed all of them. So she goes in there. She sees that there's maybe a little over a half a bag left. She said, "I'll be dipped." And she comes around the corner and she's holding the bag. She said, look at this. And I said, "He did it again." She said, "Do you know anything about this?" "No." I said, "He wouldn't tell me if he did it." She said, "No, he probably wouldn't, because you'd rat on him." Anyway, she said that's the end of that. And she took them and literally went clunk into the garbage. Now, this is a half a bag of chocolate chips that he could have nibbled on, thus the name Nibbles. But she was not going to leave them for him because he had defied her express wishes to stay out of them. All right, so the church got applesauce raisin. We got applesauce raisin again. And he stuck his hand in the cookie jar and came back with a handful of disappointment again. This went on for years. And it was actually funny, except that I got kind of tired of her punishing him, and then I'd have to eat them too. Even though they were good, but by the time I got to my teen years, I was watching my weight. So, if I ate one cookie a day, I was probably doing okay. So, when I got older and I started making babysitting money, I was trying to come up with gifts that I could afford to get him for his birthday or for Christmas. Well, what do you get for your dad? What did he eat all the time? Chocolate chips. So I just go to the grocery and buy his gifts. And then as I got older, sometimes I would just add those as a bonus gift, along with a shirt or, with some socks or whatever it is that you give your dad, cologne. And sometimes I get jumbo bags, like a couple of them. And if they weren't spending Christmas with us, I'd send them there. And Mom said that usually he'd have them polished off within about a week. Now, this is a skinny little man, and his grandfather and great uncle both died of problems with diabetes in the 30s. Okay, well, I don't think that they had insulin then. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, but they both had kidney failure and died. So you would think that maybe he'd temper his enthusiasm for sweets a little bit. Nope. Anyway, it was always a hit. And so I miss her Toll House cookies. I missed them then. I still do, although I could make them myself. That would not be my mother's Toll House cookies. And that makes all the difference in the world, of course. But I don't know. I think about Dad sometimes, and I think about his nibbles, and it just cracks me up. He was one of a kind. So I hope that this gave you a little chuckle. Maybe your dads did something similar, or you had a grandpa or a grandma that used to, steal stuff and, and nibble them. And maybe you got a story that you can tell me and I can put up if you want. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you have an awesome day. And I love you guys a lot. I realize that I say that. You probably think, oh yeah, sure she does. No, I do. I really do. Thanks for being here, and thanks for listening to my silly stories, and thanks for giving me something to smile about, to remember things about my family, about my life, that some of it's actually kind of fun. It's fun to tell you about it and share it, because then in some small way, they're still living through this story that I get to give to you. So anyway, again, I love you guys. Peace.